All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Should we rise for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order tonight is to recognize the Horsham Fire Company and the firefighters for their service to Horsham Township. Bill?
As council knows, we like to use this time of year to thank the men and women of the Horsham Fire Company and the great service they do to our community. I think a lot of us sometimes take for granted the first responders, and we lived a storm just recently on September 1st here in Horsham, the first tornado, and then 7 inches of rain that followed the tornado. And our fire company, as I said, they're the first responders for events like that. Many of them are volunteers. Most of them are volunteers. They have paid career staff, but these are the men and women that volunteer their time with training, and then they take their time out at 2 a.m. in the morning. They risk their lives to save others in our community. And that's what happened on September 1st here in Horsham. We had over 60 water rescues in Horsham alone after the tornado hit us, and our fire company was just fantastic of what they did. We all had help from mutual aid companies and municipalities, but they are our first responders. And they're when I see a truck go out, and I see Battalion 2 go out frequently now that it's an active fire station, but when I see a truck out, the first thing I think about is not where are they going and what's going on in town. The first thing I say to myself is be safe and save others. And what the work that they do is remarkable, and just their relationship with the township, the school district, the water authority is just amazing. How everything just functions here in Horsham, and all of us have good relationships, good partnerships to make things happen here, make good things happen here for the community and the residents of Horsham. And you don't see that a lot in many towns. You don't see that. And we're very fortunate to have these people in the audience that after September 1st, I used to call them heroes, and I still do. But after September 1st, they're guardian angels too. They really watch out after all of us in our community. They respond, as I said, holidays. They leave their families, and I think, Lee, you can correct me. Most of them here this evening are volunteers.
Yeah, we have all the on-duty staff as well.
So all of them, they leave their tables, during Thanksgiving. They leave their Christmas Eve parties, Christmas mornings. If they get a call, they leave their homes, they leave their families, and they head to who needs help. So, and the amount of training to be a firefighter nowadays, even a volunteer firefighter, is just amazing. The mandatory training. So they had to put in courses and go through at the fire academy and just become a volunteer firefighter. And then they had to do drills every week on Wednesday nights, and different other types of training, on top of their real life jobs and their families and their homes. So it's really remarkable what these people do for us, and we are very thankful. And we want to take this time, and we do each year around this time, to say thank you. What you folks do does not go unnoticed. We notice you all the time, and we thank you. We officially thank you once a year most of the time, but we thank you every time we hear your trucks and your ambulances go out. So thank you for all that you do for Horsham.
I'd like to second everything that Mr. Gildea Walker said. You folks are just a tremendous organization in Horsham Township. I've had the good fortune to be friends with many of you for a number of years, and I just, again, like to say thank you for your service. From time to time, you come to us and ask for help with equipment or other things, and it's always a pleasure to do everything we can to support you. We've got a proclamation here that I'd like to, before I do that, Frank or Lee, would you like to say anything? Or actually, anybody else?
Thank you for our time in front of you. It's always a pleasure. As you know, I'll be in front of you on November 10th to give our annual address. So I don't want to take too much of your time tonight because we'll be right back in with you in a couple of weeks. But we do appreciate the recognition, and it's our pleasure to work with all of you. So.
Okay. Whereas, since 1913, Horsham Fire Company Number 1, firefighters, emergency medical services, EMS personnel, and fire police continue to serve an essential role in the protection of lives and property in Horsham Township. And whereas Horsham Fire Company Number 1 is comprised of highly trained and well-equipped volunteer, career, and fire EMS personnel. Many department members have completed the demanding and time-consuming courses necessary to become nationally certified firefighters, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, and whereas National Fire Prevention Month is recognized every year in October to educate the community about the actions they can take to keep themselves and those around them safe in the event of a fire. Our fire company provides life-saving public education in an effort to drastically decrease casualties and injuries caused by fires. And whereas on the occasion of National Fire Prevention Month, we express our sincere gratitude to Horsham Fire Company Number 1, their members and volunteers who are committed to continued training, skill enhancement, and interagency coordination, and do not hesitate to risk their own lives in order to save the lives of others. We thank you for your dedication, service, and commitment to our community. You want to do a picture now?
Yep. We'll blend in the 3 members of council in the middle here, and then everyone else just blend in. Oh, Greg, go in the middle. Bill and Bill, over in the middle. I need some people over here to balance. Oh, thank you, ladies. That guy's not a number. Probably the Matt. Now you have to squeeze in, and the gentleman on the end has to squeeze in. I'll bring Mike to do that. All right, here we go. One more. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to verify. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Yep.
In a couple weeks. Phil, thanks again. Thanks for everything.
Thanks, sir.
Phil.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Matt, good to see you. Thank you. Michael. Thank you.
Thanks. Yep, thanks.
All right, we'll head out. Train them now.
Okay, the next item would be opportunity for questions and comments from the public. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up? Yes, sir.
May I speak to oppose the location of the new school that's proposed?
You may. We're also going to speak about that later.
I
So,
have a time to speak later? Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, the next item would be the approval of the list of checks.
I move to approve the list of checks and all funds in the amount of $2,400,718, and further move to authorize payment of the same.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Right, next item would be to review the zoning hearing board applications for Hatboro Horsham School District at 227 and 229 Meeting House Road.
So as council's aware, this is a continuance, so they were here the end of September here in front of you. They seek to continuance to address some stormwater impervious coverage issues, as well as to get some better renderings for height. And I just want to explain, I know there's some audience members here this evening, that tonight is a zoning hearing board application review. This is not a land development review. So what council will be reviewing is the zoning hearing board application, and the variances that the school district is seeking is for fencing, height, impervious coverage, and signage. And that's what the discussion this evening will be about, is those variances. We won't be getting into land development discussions. This is a zoning hearing board application review. The school district has not submitted a land development application to the township, so we're going to keep our discussions and comments to their zoning hearing board application this evening. And their team is here to present, and I believe Jamie Lynch, their project manager, is going to present their presentation to you on their variances that they are seeking. And also, so the public knows in the audience, Township Council does not approve variances. That is the job by the zoning hearing board. So Township Council reviews zoning hearing board applications, and they take a position and provide a recommendation to the zoning hearing board, but ultimately the zoning hearing board is the board that grants the approval or denial of any variances the school district is seeking. And I'll just ask our solicitor if she wants to add to any of those comments.
No, there's nothing to add to that, other than the council's not making a decision tonight. The decision's going to be made by the zoning hearing board on the second Tuesday. And also, this is part of a process that the school district has to go through. The land development process, which is where they put all of the improvements down on one piece of paper, the engineer reviews it, and council acts on it, that has not started yet. This is a preliminary part of the process where they're coming in to get relief from zoning provisions.
Jamie?
Okay. Good evening, members of council. I'm Jamie Lynch with Dewey Engineering. It's good to be with you again tonight to talk about a very exciting project for the Horsham community and the Hatboro Horsham School District, and that is the rebuilding of the Keith Valley Middle School. Thank you very much for the introductory remarks. We're very happy to be back in front of you again to provide the additional information that you asked for on the heels of our prior presentation. So with me is Scott Eveslage, the superintendent of schools, Bill Stone, business manager, and members of our design team, so that we can try to answer any questions. But I'll be rather brief and start to talk about some of the things that we've done for Keith Valley on the heels of our original discussion as we proceed forward toward a land development submission. With a little help of someone driving over there. Is that you, Bill?
Hey.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm just making sure that my pointer is working. Just in an overview fashion, our progress continues on the design of the new middle school. Our land development submission is coming in November for the township to consider. We've amended in the meantime the zoning application on the basis of new information, new design decisions that have been made, and input that we've received from the community. So the relief sought by the district really remains the same. It's in the areas, as Bill mentioned, for building height, site impervious coverage, fencing on the frontage of the property, and project signage. And just to update you on the improvements we've made since we saw you in September, we've actually lowered the facade of the building that faces Milton Avenue. We've reduced the impervious coverage that you saw in our prior presentation. We've reduced the fencing on the site, some of it on the frontage, but also some of the fencing also on the site. And we've made some size adjustments to the signage that's proposed for the building. So I'm going to take you on a little tour of where we stand. And as Bill mentioned, yes, we have some new renderings as we go forward. The calculation for building height is somewhat complex to determine what is the actual height of the building. And I've tried to summarize it in one slide for you. And essentially, everything is based on the finished floor elevation, which is an average elevation in the building. And essentially, where we need relief is on the classroom wing that faces Milton Avenue, which has been reduced from well over 40 feet to 39.5 feet. Also in the commons area that contains our library and cafe in the middle of the building, traditionally really a higher space in most school buildings. Also for our auditorium fly, the area above the stage, and the gymnasium. So you can see the height above the grade elevation, and that's the relief that we're seeking, as has been granted in other educational projects that we've performed. So that's really the summary. The details, the calculations are included in the zoning application. If we take a look at what this looks like around the site, you recall last meeting we presented a video of what the school would look like. I won't take you through that again, but in order to familiarize yourself again, this is Meeting House Road. Our building is still situated toward the rear of the site, with our main entrance for cars in this area, our main entrance for buses and for their parking in this area, staff parking along Upland Avenue, and a service entrance that runs into the back of the building near Arundel. And so we've identified, with the help of the architect's graphics, what the building would look like from the various vantage points. And I'll take you through that, beginning with a Milton Avenue shot. This is an image of what the building would look like from Milton Avenue, probably between the houses. Again, it is a 3-story building. This is our classroom wing that faces Milton, the quietest side of the building, in our opinion. It also doesn't have windows in the classrooms that face the community. It simply has an egress stair tower that would be dimly lit only at night with emergency lighting. So the quiet side of the building is the one that faces the neighborhood. We've also increased the setback distance to 100 feet over the 30 feet that's specified. And since we last met, we've eliminated a clerestory space that raised the building up even taller above the stairs. So the clerestories have been eliminated. We've raised the landscaping between the Milton Avenue residence and the building onto a small earthen berm so that those trees will be higher when they're first planted. And again, we've kept windows off of that facade intentionally. If we go to the next view, this is another view from a little further back as you make the turn on Milton back toward Garden Avenue. The small picture in the front is an actual photograph of that area. And I think that the Schrader Group rendering really does a pretty good job of showing what that building will look like from that point on Milton Avenue as you head towards Garland. So you see our building through the tree line here, residence houses on Milton here. The church that's on the corner at Upland is located here. And this is the driveway that heads back towards Milton. So I think, again, it's a fair representation of what you see from that exact spot. If we go even further back to the intersection of Milton and Garden, here's another architect's rendering of what the building would look like from that location. Again, our classroom wings would be visible through the tree line. And we've been very careful, and I think the team has been very responsive in identifying how this rendering looks in comparison to a photograph taken on the street. So we do believe that it's a very fair representation of what the finished building will look like at Garden and Milton. As you progress on Garden, further to the east toward Upland, there's a number of residents on that street who will also look onto the site. Again, another rendering from that location on Garden, where you see the church in the foreground. There's a small drainage creek or swale in this location, an empty lot before you see our tree line, and ultimately the new middle school. And another picture of really what that area generally looks like from Garden Street. So again, we tried to be as fair as we could in the way that this was represented and how it would look. Turning the corner and coming around Garden and heading up Upland, right at the corner of the existing church, this is a view at Olive Avenue on that side of the site, looking at our new building with its classroom wing facing Milton, the entrance to the district admin suite from the parking lot, and the main entrance over on the front of the building. Again, on the inset is a photograph of what the site looks like right now. And then one more image. This is on the west side of our site at Olive Avenue, which is a road that we propose to close as a part of this project in order to keep traffic out of the community. All of our traffic will then circulate from Meeting House Road through the site. So to the left is the Milton Avenue residence along with our landscaping buffer, the building here with our classroom wing, loading dock, and natatorium. And the inset is a photo as it exists today. So that was a little bit about what the building height looks like in comparison to the site. And if I move on to the next item, which is site impervious, what we've done since we last met is reduce our request to 42%. The ordinance is 35%. So what have we done, you might ask? The synthetic turf football field has been eliminated entirely. So it'll be a natural grass football field inside a new synthetic track. Parking has been reduced. The overall parking exceeds the saldo requirements. And also the parking and the curb work that we do as a part of the project will eliminate spectators parking on the grass along Upland. There are occasions where that can be a challenge. We have new sidewalk and curb that will go there in its place. And the point I'd like to make is that a 2-story building would have actually increased the impervious on the site to over 50%. And I'm sure that you can understand that because we'd be taking a classroom wing and putting it on the ground and expanding our impervious footprint. Moreover, it reduces a number of the site amenities. We wouldn't be able to do some of the amenities that we will have here in trying to replace what Keith Valley had. So that's really how impervious and building height are tied together so that we're making the most efficient building plan that our design team can come up with. So to follow up on that, and at your request, we submitted our stormwater report, all, Terry, 300 and some odd pages? He likes to remind me, 319, to Mr. Garten for his review since our last meeting. And I know Mr. Garten has issued a letter late last week that identified, I believe, that in his belief, we can comply with the township requirements with respect to stormwater. There were a number of points that were listed in the meeting, and I don't want to speak for him, but I think that it was clear from the work that Terry did that this is something that is achievable, that we can comply with both the requirements from Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection and also Horsham to deliver not only a quality project, but to do a great job in reducing the amount of stormwater that leaves the site and the rate at which it leaves the site, because we've heard the stories. I've visited with the residents, we've heard the stories, and we have a very good plan, we believe, put together. It involves 4 underground stormwater basins that'll comply with the ordinances. We haven't yet found unusual subsurface water, and our investigation is ongoing. More testing is scheduled. You'll see us out there doing more test pits, doing more infiltration tests for the basins that we have in preparation for the land development submission and also for the Montgomery County Conservation District submittal. So This work has been going on, and we just really have not found anything out of the ordinary with subsurface conditions. Just wanted to show you and familiarize yourself with the underground basins that are planned. As I mentioned, there are 4. One under the staff parking lot here in blue, one under the tennis courts, another under the main entrance, the parent loop, and another one under the bus loop. So presently, all of that stormwater that's from up on the site all leaves the site by way of upland. This plan collects, holds, and reduces that stormwater at a compliant rate. That's the short story of what will be our land development submission in detail. And our site investigation continues. Test pits, auger probes, borings have been completed. We've gathered information. We're working with our structural design team, our architect, to identify other places in the building where we need to go and investigate. In our third basin, we have additional infiltration, our fourth basin, we have additional infiltration tests to perform. And so we still have more work to do here in the month of November. Needed to wait for the athletic season to finish so we could get out there and unfortunately tear up some ball fields. Just wanted to share with you again another image. These are the locations where geotechnical borings have taken place within the building footprint. We've heard lots of ideas and heard lots of history of the site, and so we wanted to make sure we did adequate due diligence in jumping into this site and looking at all of our locations, understanding where our deep foundations are, where our large excavations will be. It helps me certainly with construction, but we also wanted to make sure that we were doing the due diligence on the site and learning about the history of the site. So this is an investigation that will be ongoing. Fencing relief. So the district requires relief on this project to install fencing adjacent to the new athletic fields on Meeting House Road that is within the setback, we need the fencing for athletes and for drivers. We also need it for parents who come and want to see junior playing on the field. We need to use fencing in order to direct them to the appropriate place to set up their folding chair and watch the game. But what we've done in the past couple of weeks is eliminate fencing over 4 feet in height on upland, with the exception of the 10-foot fence that will surround the new tennis court. We've also eliminated the fencing on Meeting House Road that's in front of what I'll call the existing football field. We had an 8-foot fence shown there that would have been within the setback. Instead, we've decided to put a 4-foot fence around the synthetic track and eliminate the 8-foot fence in that area. Only the 8-foot fencing will be installed adjacent to the athletic field on, I'll call it the east side of Meeting House Road, adjacent to the new soccer field. The fields are all designed with adequate runout space for athletes, and the fence is going to be a positive barrier not only for balls, but also for the community. In some form or fashion, we need to set lines and have a little bit of order on some of those chaotic days when there's multiple games that are going on. So I want to give you a little look at what that looks like. The general idea is we want to eliminate the barbed wire that exists already around the football field and other places on the site and replace it with a vinyl coated chain link fence and perhaps ornamental fence in some places where it makes sense. So this is ultimately the goal in order to get rid of some of the stuff that's there that's unsightly and replace it with something that's going to be fun to look at. So a couple more renderings. This is the intersection of Upland and Meeting House, looking across the site. In the foreground here, you're seeing that track and football field. I mentioned a 4-foot vinyl coated chain link fence. This, by the way, is inside the setback, so there's no relief required for this. Our main entrance would be right where it is now. One of our signs, you can barely make out in this rendering, is right at that location, but all of our car traffic enters the site here, loops, and comes back out. So that's a good idea of what it looks like at Upland and Meeting House. If you go to the next slide, you see the intersection of what I'll call the bus entrance, which is further east on Meeting House, and the entrance for our buses and really for the community to come to the sports field. This is the area where relief is being sought for this 8-foot fence that will extend along the soccer field parallel to the soccer field. So that I mentioned we have adequate run-out space for our athletes, but we do need something to control balls during practice, and you know how practices work. They go all over the place in order to keep things in. Ultimately, this fence we will probably complement because the soccer goal you can barely make out is right there. We will probably have net protection here inside the site in the parking lot so we don't have balls bouncing off of cars. And so that will change. But the relief that's being sought is for this length of 8-foot fence that runs down the soccer and softball side of the field within the setback. So the 3 items that we're asking for relief for, height, impervious coverage, and fencing, are actually all interrelated in how we're trying to develop the site and make the best decisions for the new school. The proposed arrangement, as I mentioned, is a more efficient use, in our opinion, of the site, the parking space, and the stormwater management. So I wanted to provide a brief comparison to the existing school. The existing school and admin building, the admin building is coming down as a part of this project, but the total coverage of those 2 buildings is just shy of 166,000 square feet. The square footage of the new school that has admin in it is actually less than the old school, coupled with a couple of other components that have been included in the project, like more compliant stormwater management on the site, better queuing and compliant setback distances on the site, landscape buffers, and more ornamental fence, cut-off LED site lighting, and curbs and sidewalk that allow this to become a truly walkable site. Again, that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we've tried to make the best use of the site and include the components that the school district needs while being respectful not only of the community, but also of our regulatory compliance with stormwater. Finally, project signage. I don't have wonderful images to show you here. We will be compliant with your requirements. We've simply made a couple of changes in the dimensions of our signs, consistent with the progression of our design. They are on the building, on the canopy, in the form of an LED banner sign at the main entrance, wayfinding signage that's on the site to help folks get to where they need to be. This is really probably the more boring aspect of the variance that's being sought. That's an update on where we are. We hope you'll consider this, along with the input of the township engineer with regard to your questions on stormwater. I'd be very happy to try to answer any questions that you have on Keith Valley Middle School.
Yeah, I'd like to comment, and I think the diligence that you spent over the past couple of weeks will serve you well. The additional information that you submitted, the drawings helped me understand the height stuff personally. The fact that you included our engineer helps me understand your capability and ability to meet the stormwater requirements. Eric, could you comment on that? I think some of what you have to say will be repetitive.
So Jamie had mentioned that our office did a review letter dated October 22nd of last week. Again, this is not their detailed design. This is a high-level design. He showed you that there's 4 basins, and they routed the stormwater through them so we can compare existing and proposed. And so this slide's great to show you the impervious is being reduced. And we even just did a little table, and they are complying with the rates that you guys require in your ordinance, how quickly the water flows off the site. They're actually exceeding it by 25%. And from a volume perspective, at this point, they are exceeding it by 50%. So not only are they meeting your ordinance, but they're going above and beyond. Those specific numbers might change a little bit when we get into the minor, the real detailed design of it. But again, I believe they've showed us enough that they will be able to comply with your ordinance.
So is it fair to say that we should see a significant improvement in water that leaves the property as a result of this development.
Because like they say here, we're limited stormwater management today. So the fact you're going to have 4 underground basins is going to reduce how quickly it flows off the site, how much volume gets off the site, because they're going to be able to infiltrate some of it. And it's also going to be cleaner. So it's better from an environmental perspective also. I also walked the site. We were supposed to meet with the one resident, but she had to leave town. But I did do a site visit myself. I saw the tributary that she was talking about that always has water in it. I did see some water in it. I did not see any signs of an underground spring from the school district property, although there's quite a bit of land between the school district's property and this tributary behind the church. I'm not sure who owns that property, but
The church property, right?
yeah, so the
vacant
church
lot.
could very well have a spring on it. I don't believe that spring is going to be affected by the construction of the school here.
During the community outreach, when you did have the opportunity to meet with residents, were you able to alleviate most of their concerns at that time? Was it very well attended? I know that you had mentioned that during the last meeting. And the recent measures that you're taking to even make those areas better, is there, again, a way to use that to reassure the community in that area that this is going to be a good project that will not negatively impact them?
Well, thank you for the question. The community meeting that was held was very well attended, and as you could imagine, there were lots of questions raised by residents in and around the new building. Have we satisfied everyone's question and curiosity about the building? I can't say that at all for 100%. I'm sure you'll hear from a gentleman this evening who will identify some challenges that he sees with the project. But what we've tried to do is meet with all of the neighbors directly and in person, identify the same type of information that I'm sharing with you tonight. What we have done between landscaping buffers, closing the east side of Olive Avenue, pushing the building as far as we can into the middle of the site, alleviating the traffic concerns of moms and dads running through the neighborhood or buses running through the neighborhood. I think those were the largest concerns that were identified. I can't say that we'll always satisfy everyone, and all of the neighbors know that they have my cell phone number directly, so that they'll be able to call me not only as we go through your process, but also during construction, so that at least they have a direct conduit to somebody that can hopefully address their issues.
Other than the proximity being closer to the residential areas, that contrast does look like this project would be an improvement in so many areas. Were you able at the time to convey that to the residents at the meeting?
We did, and we have, knowing what the requirements are of Horsham Township, knowing what the requirements are of DEP through the Conservation District, we're very confident in the ability to reduce the stormwater issue, which is really a primary concern for the residents. So we've conveyed that several times now, not only to the group that we met with, but also in person with direct visits with some of the residents in the community who are really affected when large storms come.
Thank you.
Great.
I want to compliment the team on the very professional presentation and the additional information, particularly with regards to the elevation and the stormwater runoff. Makes me a lot more comfortable in kind of processing all this information and what it's going to look like. I did have one question. Was the decision to not build the athletic turf field solely for impervious surface stormwater issues, or was it also a cost issue?
It is definitely a cost issue. It's definitely an impervious issue. So both of those items are reasons to making that decision. There are also, as you know, with a large capital project, lots of tugs in different directions on what makes the most sense in providing the first use of the building, which is for education. And when we talk about building enough space into this building for things like special needs and guidance, which is sorely lacking in the existing building, that's kind of a no-brainer when you start to talk about the athletic fields that will be very nice, but in going to the next level over turf, we have to put the students who are getting educated first.
And I agree with that, obviously, 100%, that goes without saying. I just didn't want it to be that, you know, any comments we made last time was the decision that you didn't do a turf field, because typically turf fields, in terms of the runoff, can be more easily managed than, say, runoffs coming off of grass fields. So, okay, that makes more sense, because
We have a plan, and at the beginning, as I mentioned, your comments at our first meeting were very right-minded. As I mentioned then, I think it was a little bit of a chicken or the egg. Before I go to land development, I have to know that some of the zoning requirements are going to be met. Otherwise, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to continue through with a protracted land development process. So you do one or then the other, and we're kind of doing them at about the same time at this point. So hopefully, we're answering everyone's questions at the same time with these submittals.
and you certainly have, and the public should feel very comfortable that in terms of the presentations here, it's not like the school district's getting a pass. This is really a very superior presentation compared, you know, we get good stuff here, but this is really excellent. So it helps us envision and feel a lot more comfortable, at least me, about what's being proposed. I know nobody's going to love this and the location of the building, but obviously it makes sense from a functional standpoint in terms of continuing to educate children, because there's no place to put these kids. You know, ideally, nobody wants to have to put it closer to Milton. That's not where in a perfect world it would be, but this is not a perfect world. So I appreciate you moving it back a little bit, changing the elevations. It looks like there's not a lot of lighting in the back. You're going to put a nice berm up with landscaping, hopefully to soften that buffer. So thank you for that.
Thank you. We'll keep working for it, and we'll appreciate all of the comments that you can bring to the project team.
Well, we also have a measurement stick here. You built a new building up the street from where you are now, and it's tremendous. So if there's any comparison, that certainly helps.
Thank you, but we won't rest. We'll keep working hard.
Before we finish up here, sir, would you like to make your comments?
Yes, I would, thank you. Yes, my name is Bob Custer, and I live at 232B Milton Avenue. That is right smack in the middle of the new school building, 100 feet off of my property. I have 38 signatures from residents who are opposed to the location of the school as planned. We realize there's a need for a new school. I believe that the building is a commercial building, 40 feet high, pushed very close to an old, mature residential area, and we feel that it shouldn't be there, that there are other locations that this nice new school could be built. So I guess I'm here to oppose the variances needed to put a 3-story commercial building right in our backyard. I have other objections, but I don't think this is where we want to hear them. We have 2 other alternatives. I understand that recently, or in the process, there's a piece of the old Navy base being transferred to the township at 611 and Maple Avenue, which might be a good place for a brand new school, and it would be in with other commercial buildings. The other alternative, in talking with my neighbors, is that we believe that adequate preparations could be made for the 1,100 middle school children to be educated elsewhere, as the original building is torn down and the new building, which is beautiful, put up on Meeting House Road, where we believe a commercial 3-story building should go. I don't think you want me to get into traffic and parents dropping off children at the end of our driveway to get to school. So we're opposed to the 3-story building being in that location, and we would like to see it moved or moved to a better property, better location. We're concerned about the stormwater. I see the design for the stormwater, but I'm not sure that that's going to solve the problem. So I must say that Jamie and I have had long conversations, and he's been very cordial. and we have a good relationship. He has his job to do. I don't want a 3-story building in my backyard. I can't look over it. I can't look around it. It's going to have 6 to 10 foot HVAC stuff on the roof, and I'd like to see them, if they have to put it there, push it back away from my property, and so do 38 neighbors here. So I think I'm going to be at the zoning board, and this is where I make my next objection to the variances that they're asking for.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for your comments.
Want to get the...
Okay, well, for the zoning requests that are before us, the question is, do we want to be neutral? So-
Neutral.
Yeah. Greg?
Yes.
Yeah, and I do too. So, good luck at the zoning hearing board, and thank you for the extra work that you put into getting us the information we need to make a good decision.
Ms. Weiss, do you want to just put on maybe a condition that, as shown, as we saw tonight?
I got it.
You got it? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. All right, the next item then is to review the subdivision and land development plan for 723 Drescher Road. Carl?
Good evening.
How are you?
Good evening, Carl Weiner, representing the applicants.
Before you start, Mr. Gildea Walker, what exactly are we doing here with this evening?
And I'm sorry, I didn't put anything on my slide. I can try to, yeah, so what you're doing this evening, this is 723 Drescher Road, the Corman Communities Ave apartment complex. It has, we have a declaration of covenants that was agreed upon and recorded at the county. They have also received preliminary approval from Township Council. So they are here. They did receive recommended final approval from the Planning Commission earlier in the month, and they are here this evening, if I recall, for 3 waivers for their final. This is the review of their final plan, and they have 3 waivers they're going to request from you, and then if all goes well, they will be back. It'll be on your agenda for the second Wednesday of November for consideration of approval.
Well, again, where are those 3 waivers?
Well, they have a waiver letter, and they're on the second page of the waiver letter. They're also laid out in Eric's letter on the second page under Roman numeral 4B, waivers requested. And one of them is a stormwater management waiver. 2 of them are stormwater management waivers, and one of them is allowing parking areas closer than 20 feet from the building. Carl, normally council would ask you to describe specifically the 3 waivers that you're looking for.
How you doing? Good. Nate Burns from Langen Engineering, here representing the civil engineering for the architect. I'll walk you through the waivers quickly. We're requesting 3 waivers, as discussed a minute ago. The first one is from section 190.23A2A in regards to stormwater calculations. The township's stormwater design requirements ask us to consider 100% of the site as all meadow. Pennsylvania DEP's requirements is that we consider 20% of the site as meadow in terms of doing our pre-construction calculations. We're asking for a waiver to decrease that to approximately 80%. So instead of us considering 100% of the site as meadow in its pre-construction condition for our stormwater calculations, we're asking to reduce that by 20%. The second waiver we're asking for...
Well, let's stop and talk about this one.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Well, you're probably going to say the same thing I was going to say. In our engineering review letter, it said 20%, that the current plan proposes to model 20% of the existing impervious. as Meadow, but you're going to do 80%?
Yeah, that's what we've discussed, is that our waiver request is to decrease the 100% to 80%.
Does that work for you, Eric?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, we've talked to Mr. Garten and his associates in terms of all these waivers and have worked them out with them.
You guys, in cases like this, where the site is almost all impervious in the precondition, have granted this waiver before. I'm happy to hear that it's, instead of 100%, it's 80%. So they're exceeding DEP regulations 4 times over.
Okay.
So I think this is a reasonable waiver, given the specific project here, and that there's not stormwater issues right in the immediate area.
Yeah. You good, Bill? Great. All right, let's
Okay.
go to the next one.
Certainly. The second item is section 190-18K, and this is for stormwater facility dewatering. The reference section of the ordinance require that any stormwater management facility dewater within a 72-hour period. Typically, this is something that's enacted to discourage mosquito population and things like that with above-ground stormwater management. For this site, all of our stormwater management will be underground, so there's no potential for mosquito populations to breed or anything like that. And again, we've discussed this waiver with Mr. Garten.
Yeah, we're fine with it because it's underground.
You good, Bill?
Yes.
Great. Okay. And your next one?
And the final one is for 198D4 parking areas. The reference section of the ordinance prohibits parking within 20 foot of the building face. This site is a challenge. There's a lot of existing easements that forced us to pull the parking in and push the building in. We're also providing a large trail and landscaped area in front of the building, which takes up some space and pushes our driveways back. So we're asking to decrease that that requirement from a 20-foot parking offset from the building to a 15-foot parking offset from the building. Understanding that within that, we'll have a 5-foot sidewalk and then 10 feet of very heavily landscaped area.
Okay. Well, this is one that I know that we've given before. Yeah. So you guys good?
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent.
Well, glad I could help you through that.
Let me just point out also, there is I think Bill mentioned a declaration of restrictive covenants that we agreed to. That will be modified, I think, to the extent that we agreed to do improvements to the intersection at Drescher Road and Walnut Grove. That is being changed based on discussion with township staff to Whitmer Road and Prudential. So we'll modify the agreement accordingly.
Bill, do you have any comments on that, on the change?
No, they're working well with us on the change, and actually later on.
That's the change we requested, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In order to get our grant for the light, the Myria grant could fund the Drescher and Walnut Grove light. It could not fund the Prudential and Whitmer Road light. So they agreed to switch for us.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
And we just, all other, we have review letters, and they're really all will comply items on the review letters. There is only, I think, one zoning issue, I think, that was raised in the Gilmore letter relating to parking and having a row of, maximum row of 20 parking spaces. We actually provide 20 parking spaces. There are 11 other spaces that are considered loading and unloading spaces for deliveries and such. So I believe that satisfied the Eric's concern about that zoning issue.
All right. Well, then, do we have more on this one?
That's it. I think we're,
Great.
we'd like you to ask you
Good
to.
luck. Keep coming back with bigger pictures. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I assume the next step is you're going to authorize Mary to prepare a resolution for the final plan, correct?
Yes,
Okay. All
I
right.
think they're doing that implicit.
That'll be on the second Wednesday of November.
Right. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, then the next item tonight is to render a decision on the Water and Sewer Authority Davis Grove Road conditional use application.
At your last meeting, you had the conditional use hearing for the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority. This is for a water line project to connect private well owners that are contaminated with PFAS. And this is a need that they had to cross the Park Creek, where the Davis Grove Bridge was just put in. They had to put in a water pipe to cross the creek and repairing corridor.
All right. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the conditional use application for the Horsham Water and Sewer Authority, Davis Grove Road, 21-09-CU.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote. Mr. Gildea Walker?
Mr. Gallagher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Next item is to authorize the solicitation of the following bid: Dresser Road and Walnut Grove traffic signal.
So we just got PennDOT approval last week, so we're ready to go to bid for this traffic signal. We hope to get it in next fall, but at the latest, at the end of next year. And as council is aware of why does it take that long? Supply, and how long it takes us to get a traffic signal in, so.
All right, do we have a motion?
Move to authorize the solicitation of bids for the Drescher Road and Walnut Grove Drive traffic signal, and further move to authorize payment of the same.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Actually misspoke, advertisement of the same, not payment of the same.
Oh, boy.
So,
Do we have to vote again?
you should vote again.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item is to consider a resolution designating an agent to sign and execute documents concerning reimbursement of costs for the September 1st, 2021 Hurricane Ida, tornado, and flood.
This says designating Matt Reinhardt, our fire marshal and emergency management coordinator, to sign and execute all documents as he works with FEMA and PEMA to get our reimbursements back for from the tornado and flood of September 1st.
All righty, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution as proposed, designating Matthew Reinhardt, Emergency Management Coordinator, to sign documents concerning reimbursement of costs for Tropical Depression Ida.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's a roll call vote. Mr. Gildea Walker?
Mr. Gallagher, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Nesbitt, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Whiteside, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All righty, so this is our final agenda item. Meeting adjourned.